life taught me, and a lot of readings in between to change this paradigm of mine, this shift in thinking. And it's engaging people and diverse voices within the design process. So the power of people is unmatchable. It's the most powerful thing. And you need to be very much aware and to listen to what people have to say, to make them included, to make them attached to this place, to make them feel this sense of belonging. And I would say this, the social justice will never happen otherwise.
In these times of fast change, have you ever thought architecture might be falling a bit short and wondered, what's next? Well, let's find out. My name is Luca De Stefano. I'm one of the founders of Nourhan, and this is Boundary Breaking Businesses Beyond Architecture, designers and commissioners of tomorrow speaking today. Episode 8, The Feminist Designer. Hello and welcome back at Beyond Architecture. Are you ready to get political? Because today our guest calls herself a feminist designer. She has been very active in placemaking all around the world with her GamingX. And throughout her PhD in resilient communities and placemaking, she has been investigating cities all across Europe, collaborating with institutions such as the Polytechnic of Milan, but also doing research in Amsterdam and Copenhagen. She's about to publish her book, The Gender City, where she interviews women all around the world to discover how cities have been failing females throughout history. We connect with Milan, Italy, because today at Beyond Architecture, we talk with Nourhan Bassam. Welcome at Beyond Architecture. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. And I always try to go straight to the point. With you, it's kind of easy because I have a very easy question, or at least easy to ask. I'm not sure it's so easy to answer. What is a feminist designer?
A feminist designer, from my perspective, is someone who approaches all their designs with a feminist lens. And in my urbanist self, I would say a feminist urbanist is someone who is approaching the work in the built environment with feminist lenses. So it means considering every aspect of the design process through this prism of gender equality and gender perspective. So it should be addressing the unique opportunities and barriers faced by women and individuals who identify as women in the built environment, recognizing that the built environment has the power to reinforce or challenge societal norms and inequalities.
Can you make a practical example of these inequalities? I'm curious to have a test case to make this more tangible.
For instance, in urban design, women have different mobility patterns than men. So women have what is called trip chaining. So it is several interconnected trips throughout the day. So if we imagine two scenarios, a male and a female, usual day, it would be a man taking their car or maybe a direct transportation commute to their work from point A to point B. But then women doing 75% of the world's unpaid care work. We are talking about grocery shopping, taking kids to school, taking relatives to the doctor, running errands. So they would do point A, B, C, D. So, and this is what is called trip chaining. And this, when you study this gender disparities in mobility, it contributes to making women's day more difficult than males, finding the adequate transportation mode and doing all of these short trips that are chained from and to work. And as you mentioned, doing the grocery shopping. And for the longest time, transportation was planned, that all of these trips are leisure activities. So actually mobility wasn't planned to incorporate all of these different needs and disparities between males and females. So this is, for example, how we would say cities and mobility systems, etc., were designed by and for men for the longest time in a historical way as well. And now what we are trying to do is changing this perspective that is binary, that is male centered, male as the norm, male as a default, to a more wider lens to incorporate all the diverse needs.
Okay. So if I understand you right, the whole transportation system was basically built for men going to work, and everything else was uncomfortable because of the comfort the men had to do to reach their final destination. And you were mentioning, sorry, this multi-chain, right?
Trip chaining. It's called trip chaining.
Oh, trip chaining.
Yeah, it's the multi-chain.
Okay.
Yeah, the shorter commutes women would do to as well incorporate the unpaid care work that women usually more and have to do.
I have a ton of questions on how you basically practice and sustain projects, because I can imagine your day-to-day job is challenging business as usual, if I understand you right. But before we get there, I have another burning curiosity I need to satisfy. Like, who was born first, the designer or the feminist? Like, did you become a feminist while studying design, while studying urban planning, or did you become an urban planner because you were in the first place a feminist?
Well, I would say for the longest time, since a very young age, I've called myself a feminist. And it was actually like weird being in sittings and me saying I'm a feminist. And due to my upbringing, I grew up reading Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex, and a lot of feminist literature, Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, and all of these, I would say feminists and Middle Eastern feminists as well, like Nawal Saadawi. They made me the person I am today. And for the longest time, as an architect and urban designer, I've been, the usual, I would say, designer. But I had this paradigm shift to put and merge my feminist self, knowing more and reading more about disparities and how spaces are evolved by social constructs, and me as well being a woman of color in different contexts made me realize that, well, I need to do something that direct my passion of feminism with urban design and public spaces. So I would say, of course, the feminist was born first, and it's something like I would say I remember since I was 6 years old, discussing gender issues and feminist stuff, and yeah, I would say now that I am kind of lucky to find, this merge between my actual interests and feminist self with my profession as an urban designer and a placemaker.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And I remember we were talking offline. You were telling me now you're based in Italy and the Netherlands, but you are originally Egyptian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a journey. How did that happen?
Yes, I was mentioning that I was born in Dubai and grew up in Dubai actually, and then I returned to Cairo for university studies for college, and I would say like my late dad played a crucial part in me, like growing up. He was very intellectual, introduced me to most of the feminist literature I've been reading. And as well, this is a very diverse upbringing. So I studied in Amsterdam as well. So it was really this diverse urban belonging and how my positionality as a woman of color changed, and this intersectionality as well of me grasping different cities. And I would say that in the East or in the West, it's usually a similar disparities you would find in the built environment. Oh. So it's not really different how you experience what you say gendered cities. I would say that it's still a long route in every city in the world. Of course, some countries are not redressing the gender inequality as well as others. But this, from my experience as I navigated more and more contexts, I would find that sexism and of course sometimes racism, etc., it's still imbued in our societal constructs, in our spatial experiences too.
Staying on a personal note, I had like one question I really wanted to ask you. I wonder if there was a specific moment when you realized, okay, sorry, no, I cannot be a normal urban planner. I cannot go do master plans for Asia and Saudi and so on.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm supposed to be.
Well, I think, being a feminist myself and being, as a woman, you face these situations over and over again. So I had a lot of anxiety issues actually being in, on maybe using public transportation. So for instance, I never use public transportation in Cairo. And for me, this is like, so I need to have a car. I need to be in my car at times. So this kind of as well reinforcement that only because of your gender, this puts you in this situation. So I would say that I live these gendered realities firsthand. So I'm always one of these women who can do physical activity at night, who are very much, I have anxiety of being in dark areas or, walking in some streets at night. So I would say that it's something that have been in the back of my mind forever, that why I am not, I need to update my Uber ride and share it with someone. It's like always, are you home safe? And this is not something that my male peers would, face. So it's like always why I am the one who has to make these change of routes, go early from a party, change your outfit, change of attitude, to walk faster, to avoid eye contact, but still very much be aware of your surroundings. It's something that I've lived and experienced, and I would say in every city I've been to. And it's always like, why me? Why, as only because of gender, I have to face these issues. So it has been really in the back of my head. It's something that I live with every day, and this is like really the point that made me, sometimes I'm very radical and I'm very angry as well, that this needs to change, because this is not how people should live their lives. This is not how I should live my life. And yeah, I think it's something very much personal, something I face, and I have a lot of female friends face too. And I've heard horrific experiences that maybe my privileges, because you have to be aware of as well the areas you're privileged. And so maybe my privileges didn't make me face these stuff, but I'm always, it can be me. And I've heard like horrific stories and from my friends, from women from different parts of the world, about how it is sometimes very bad to be just a woman in certain contexts. So I think it's my, it's in the back of my head. It's something that I lived with, all my life.
It has been there forever.
Yeah. And actually I've written this like in the beginning of the book, that, it is, this humming sound, this tune, because I'm a very much musical person, but it's actually like a tune, a humming sound that followed me forever. And like reading about feminist pioneers and feminist urbanists and feminist geographers from like maybe 30 years ago, and Dolores Hayden, and from the 70s even, talking about what the non-sexist city would be like. And reading all of this made me realize that this exists and we can make it happen, but as well make me as well upset, because it has been there for years and years, and still a lot of things didn't happen. A lot of things didn't change. A lot of things weren't embedded within design structure systems. And this is the resilience, I would say, that we face from people letting go of their privileges, and from males specifically, letting go of the patriarchy. And we still face, I would say, a lot of resilience from people who don't want to question their perspective, or they don't want to have a wider perspective of different people and different genders in the built environment. So yeah,
it goes too slow, huh?
It goes too slow. I'm afraid to say, and this is like, maybe the next generations would feel some things different, but definitely not ours. Yeah.
I understand, but I think it's also thanks to the work that you do, and I mean, we all try to do in different forms, but this requires a small revolution. It cannot happen by itself. I agree with that.
Yeah, totally.
So then I could ask you where the patriarchal imprint was the strongest in all the cities you lived and studied.
Yeah, the patriarchal imprint, I would say, of course, in Middle Eastern context, because I remember that even me saying I'm a feminist, it was not a welcoming, a thing to say. A lot of males would assume I'm like anti-males, I'm a man-hating. So the stigma, even with the word, still very much persistent. But I would say that even in municipalities in some European countries, it would still be that they don't want to call things as like feminist. I think the stigma still exists even in the West, and this is something that is, for me, was surprising. But yeah, this is the reality, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was really hoping for a plot twist there that you would tell me, oh no, actually this Western country is the most racist. But maybe I can get you there. Wait, what about the urban structure? Like, okay, you told us that cities were designed for men, and that's still very much true today. Where do you feel this is the most visible?
Where do I feel? Well, I would say that always safety and the perception of safety would be a persistent matter for women in cities all around the world. And I have myself and a lot of my friends, we would be very much anxious in, I would say, cities after dark. So even in winter times when the days are shorter, you would think twice to do the physical activity you would do in a park. And yeah, it's like a decision to make, and you need to be very much prepared, very much aware of your surroundings. And maybe you wouldn't do it, or you would rather go to an indoor gym, rather than, and of course, paying more, etc. So it's always a decision to do, commuting in some areas. And yeah, so we would say this like, some areas screams anxiety, for women. And I think that, it's a common issue in most of the cities I've been to and I've visited, in. So yeah.
But Nourhan, what can you do about that? Like in terms of design as spatial planners, what can we do?
Well, of course, there are a lot of things you can address through urban design. We would say that like eyes on the street, having an interactive blinds and well-lit areas, avoiding dead ends, avoiding alleys that are maybe underground or very dark, not being seen in. So you can do so and advise some design enhancements, I would say, in an area to be more women friendly and more gender diverse friendly, and looks more safe. And I love this quote of Leslie Kern in Feminist City: no amount of light would dismantle the patriarchy. So this is where all the gender norms that are embedded in traditional societies and women that were expected to be at home. Like this is the historical gendering of cities, I call it in my book even. So yeah, it's, of course, it starts from everywhere, from every family, to dismantle these gender norms and the patriarchy. But as designers, there are a lot as well to do to enhance and to advise designs.
So I'm trying to recap a bit in my mind. Like we talked before about the fact that the mobility system was structured to serve primarily the needs of the family man, disregarding every non-compliant kind of human or citizen. So that's, I think, a more hidden kind of discrimination, because if you wouldn't explain it to me, it would take me time to understand or notice myself. And then there is more, let's say, evident issues like safety, lighting, creating safe public space. What do you work on the most? Are we talking about doing lots of projects on the hidden discriminations or on the placemaking and safety issues?
Well, I would say that amplifying these issues, as you mentioned, and I always say that gender disaggregated data, and this is my favorite keyword, addressing gender inequality. So as you mentioned, it's sometimes not visible to males or the rest of the population to know what's wrong actually with the place or with this system. So this is where gender-based statistics and sex disaggregated data comes very much in help. So these data can help to identify gender-specific needs and experiences related to the physical space and recreational areas. So it can identify whether men and women use public spaces differently, and whether it's and why is that? It's very important. So for instance, and this is one of my favorite inspirations, I would say, because I'm working as well in the Feminist Park in Berlin and in Hamburg, and it's this project that is expanding and creating a recreational park or a playground that does not discriminate based on gender is something very important, because there is like make space for girls, and these are like my main inspiration, as I mentioned. They gathered sex disaggregated data, and then something really surprising came by, that the skate parks and the Muga prototypes, the multiple use game areas, they only attract teenage boys, and the numbers are really shocking, that it reaches 98% are only male teens. And then girls are always in the periphery of the playground, not included in the games, etc. So this was really wowing in gathering data and actually like putting this data visible for everyone, that something needs to change about recreational areas and parks, because this disparity is amazing, and it can't be the case that teen girls cannot do physical activity just because of their gender. And this is why like only gender is the constant here. So yeah, it really helps to identify trends and patterns and inequalities, and visualizing as well. Data is my new I would say motive to visualize data, because it supports our arguments, it supports the findings, and convince people eventually that no, these places are not working for more than half of the population, and we need to do something about it.
Well, you mentioned this project, the Feminist Park, if I understand right.
The Feminist Park, correct. And I mentioned as well, Make Space for Girls. They are, I would say, the first to gather data regarding these Muga prototypes. So I would say they were an inspiration, but the Feminist Park is a partner project with the Feminist Park Berlin and in Hamburg, and it's a survey and a research project that is as well leading to advocacy to start to advise the change in parks and recreational area to incorporate women, especially women after dark, and it's a participatory project. So at the beginning, it was like males saying like, why do you want to make a park that without men? So it's still this feminist idea that its place is only for women. But then we tried to like say that feminist spaces, it means like spaces that works for everyone and the marginalized. So it addresses everything. It's not only gender, but it's gender, ethnicity, class, ability, etc. So it's basically parks that works for the 99.9%.
Beautiful. I think it makes a lot of sense. Like I often discuss this with my partner. She's also a very active feminist. And one of the biggest discussions is not that very often discrimination is not even a willing act. It's just that too many men are in position of power. Therefore, it's much easier that their needs will be represented and everyone else is left out. So I understand the value of what you do. It makes an incredible impact. And I wonder, like, I really picture two types of listeners for this episode. There's going to be a group that it's activists, and there's designers that want to make a difference and like you start working on urgent topics that so many didn't address yet. And then there's going to be another group, which is a group of curious, of people that want to understand what you do and what they're missing in their practice. I wonder if you could give us, to both groups, an overview of what type of projects you normally deal with and what type of clients, just to understand which possibilities are out there to make the difference as a designer.
Yeah, so I would say as an urbanist and a placemaker, I usually worked in active citizen participation projects with NGOs, with companies that are working on active citizen participation. So, and now like diverting from active citizen participation, but with a feminist lens, I would say, that is usually tackling the marginalized being presented in community decisions in neighborhood. I would say that it's still the same aspects. I didn't work with municipalities yet or policy changers, although I hope I can reach out for some of these. But it's usually NGOs, so I can provide support to NGOs working on various cases such as gender equality, environmental conversation with social justice. So I frame research projects. As a researcher, this is like usually what I've been doing. Most of the time, because as an urbanist, I had this a lot of hands-on experience in projects in different contexts for active citizen participation. But as a feminist urbanist, it's still as well projects that will be happening maybe next year. So this will include me being inside as well. But till now, I do this. I framed multiple research projects and projects in general, being a PhD someone. So I provide as well master students supervision for their thesis. I try to make it pro-feminist geographies, but this is not always the case. But it's about urbanism and placemaking and active citizen participation. So yeah, and I would definitely, and I always mention this, that feminist urbanism projects funding is a whole, is a struggle, I would say.
Yeah.
So it is not easy to fund projects, I would say, that is only directed into feminist geographies or these type of issues. But I would say that it's definitely gaining momentum. Things are changing, very much little changes, but I appreciate every change. But I would say that it's not always easy to fund these type of projects.
So I hear on one hand, of course, research. You're a PhD. You've been writing a lot about also discovering interesting cases. I hear working with NGOs and participatory budgets, I guess. Am I missing anything?
No, this is pretty much it. Yeah. And of course the book, it has been, my,
oh yeah, writing and education.
Yeah, but it's actually, the book is not, it's not a dissertation type, of production, because after I finished my PhD, I was like, I am really I'm done kinda with academic writing, and I want this as well, the gendered city and these concepts to be for the normal person. So if you are a city enthusiast, if you are someone who is interested in feminism or in gender inequalities in general, you would as well read the gendered city as a relevant book to you. So it's a bit of feminist literature. It's a bit of interviews with other women, online and offline, of how cities keep failing women. This research question I posed like 2 years ago, and I've been gathering a lot of, it's about storytelling. It's about amplifying the silenced voices, I would say, from city making and city design. And it's as well personal about my own experiences in different gender cities. So it is not an academic writing, I would say. It's very much open for everyone to read if you're interested in actually like multiple topics, because it's not, coded into some certain academia writings. It is, I loved that it can be for everyone, and to make a case more for the general public, I would say.
It's quite interesting, I think, for all those that want to get more involved into these topics as designers, to hear what you're doing. And I think the book could be a very interesting reference for everyone to go to, have a look, because it's, yeah, as you say, it's not a very strong academic publication. It's something meant to be informing everyone. I'm curious if you have some ideas or big ambitions also on who else could be the partners of tomorrow's feminist designers, because this might be what you're able to do today, but I want to believe that in a few years, this is going to be the new norm. We will need to disrupt business as usual on all levels. then who would you like to work with?
Yeah, so I mean that it's definitely something I always discuss, the systemic view of gender inequality. So we know that no country has reached gender equality. We're still lacking, even with the economic violence against women, the gender pay gap, and we just celebrated a couple of days ago the day that women would work for free for the rest of the year because of the gender pay gap. So I would say that making gender disparities visible in a systemic way, this is what I hope for. So we have this concept of gender mainstreaming. And it means that in municipalities, this is a whole department of gathering gender disaggregated data, of allocating gender budgets, like budgets to research and to check disparities based on gender. So I would say that I wish that it's not one municipality or two municipalities doing gender mainstreaming. You know, Sweden has incorporated gender mainstreaming 30 years ago, and this is very much pioneering, and Vienna too. So I would say this is always the light of the examples of how gender mainstreaming can be incorporated in housing prototypes, in mobility, etc.
Yeah. So ideally, in a better future, every municipality has a budget to hire consultants like you to sit down and for every project, check the data, make sure it's inclusive.
Exactly. Hopefully in every part of the world as well. Because it's vital. It's necessary. It's time. Of course, it's timely, but it should have been the case, I think, years ago. But I hope it's not always like too late. Maybe not our generation would see the differences, but of course the next generations.
And Nourhan, like we always close giving an advice for designers that are either practicing for a while or that are just about to start. What would you tell them?
Well, I would first of all, because as a designer, as an architect as well, it's always that you know better. You know, we have as architects this idea that you design everything for people, from where they would live in, the look of the building, even the interior objects, right? And even the clothing. Like architects design everything. But I would say that it's like life taught me, and a lot of readings in between, to change this paradigm of mine, this shift in thinking. And it's engaging people and diverse voices within the design process. So I would say that even as placemakers, it's important to be radical inclusive in whom you would include into designing their neighborhood and basically their lives. So the power of people is unmatchable. It's the most powerful thing, and you need to be very much aware and to listen to what people have to say, to make them included, to make them attached to this place, to make them feel this sense of belonging. And I would say this, the social justice will never happen otherwise. So they need to have voices. And of course, you need to be radical, including all the diverse voices. So to be radical inclusive about marginalized communities and people that for the longest time, their voices wasn't heard, women, for instance. So it's really important in promoting inclusive design to design within this state of mind, to include everyone. And I would say that, of course, as someone who is working in gender mainstreaming or addressing gender disparities, you need to challenge the gender norms and stereotypes, to gather data, to see what's not working for whom, and to collect and analyze sex disaggregated data. It's really important. So yeah, it's always listen to the people. They have this huge power and ideas within themselves, and to always be radical inclusive, and even like make a list of who is not presented in these community gatherings or in these contexts in decision making. So yeah.
Okay. And what is the one thing you look at when you go into a new city?
Oh wow. Yeah. So for me, actually, going to new cities, it's usually, me being a flaneuse, this terminology of being a wanderer. So walking is my favorite activity to do in a city. And lately, but it's a bit dangerous, I've been experiencing cities after dark. And the whole after dark economy and the whole women representation after dark and the whole city sensation after dark says a lot about the city. Yeah, it makes you encounter all sorts of things, but this concept of like exploring cities after dark has been my thing in every city. So I'm usually walking. It's like the thing I do, and using public transportation. Like although I've been recently in Mexico City, I'm just back, and everyone told me like don't use the metro there. But then I said like, as an urbanist, you wouldn't you need to like try public transportation and the metros. I would say it's really different than the metro, for example, in Milan or in Paris. It's what the metros that I'm used to, but it was quite an experience. I've seen the compartments for women and kids. So they have the first two compartments. They are solely used for women and kids. And they actually written in the metro that sexual harassment is a criminal act by the law, and they've written the law. So actually, like I've had a lot of insights from being in the metro in Mexico City, but I would say that it was a bit quite an experience. I was squeezed between people. It was very it's very interesting, but very I would say local experience too. Not as a tourist, don't do it. But yeah, so I'm a wanderer and exploring after dark cities. Yeah.
Nourhan, I want to thank you so much for joining. I really would like to have another opportunity to chat a bit more. I'm really curious about your wandering experiences in cities at night.
Yeah.
If there's more discoveries, but I guess we'll keep it for next time.
Yeah, sure. I would love to chat again, and maybe like after my book is published. Yeah, we need to reflect as well a lot of historical and modern gendering of cities is there. So yeah, we can be more radical, I would say.
Then I encourage everyone listening to be on the lookout for the Gender City coming out soon. Can we say when, or we don't know yet?
I hope so. Yeah, it's a lot of logistics, but I wish that on Christmas Eve, it will be out, but I'm really crossing fingers. So I don't know. We can like keep it soon, but it should be on Christmas Eve as my Christmas gifts, I would say, to all feminists and activists and radicals in the world.
Do you know where we can retrieve it? Is it going to be on Amazon?
Yeah. It's going to be on Amazon, of course. The paper copy and the e-copy. So, yeah. So I had actually like 2 publishing offers, but they will take a lot of realities, like exceeding 90%. And, I am now actually like making it, independent, publishing. So, I think it will be like for the first book, it will be the way to go with. So it's set on Christmas Eve, and I'm making it work.
Then we are even more motivated. Guys, start 2024 with some good reading, The Gender City on Amazon.
Yes, hopefully. Yeah.
All right, Nourhan, thank you so much.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure, Luca. Thank you for reaching out. And I hope I didn't blab and like talked about everything, but whenever you open me, like speaking about, feminist places and the Gender City, I don't shut up.
Perfect. That's what we want here. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca.
All right. We're back from quite an inspiring talk. We have this tradition in the podcast. At the end of every episode, at the end of every conversation, we talk about a potential business model that could break the boundaries of traditional architecture and take inspiration from our guests' activity. This week, we stay on track with what Nourhan has been sharing with us. We talk about activism, about ideology. Here is the boundary-breaking business model of this week. Consultant for inclusivity. So I think Nourhan quite nicely explained how this whole system of being an activist works. And there's big challenges, of course. She shared with us that today there is quite a limited, narrow pool of partners that could support projects in this direction. But she left us with the hope that soon municipalities, governments, and why not even developers might start hiring experts to make their projects and their processes more inclusive. So that's the business model for this week. What if you become that consultant? What if you start helping developers, municipalities, governments to keep them on track, to make sure that what they do, what they propose, the way they transform cities is inclusive enough, is representative enough of the 99%, as Nourhan said, if I'm not wrong. But basically it represents society as a whole and not only a few key decision makers. We hope with this idea you kind of discover new models and in practice see how this could mean in your profession. And if you find something meaningful, if you find something interesting, please, as usual, reach out and share with us. Known A Podcasts on Instagram and Known A on LinkedIn. We look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you next week. Beyond Architecture is a Known A podcast. This episode has been developed with the financial support of the Dutch Creative Industries Fund. Editorial support and marketing for Known A, Marco Mattia Cristofori, Daniela Silva, and Francisco Rivera. Sound supervision by Daniel van de Poppe for Spraakmaker Media. Advisory Max Augustijn, Martine Chloe van de Bomen, Francesco De Stefano, and Anne Bruna. I'm Luca De Stefano, your host, and this was Beyond Architecture.